As you guys know, I primarily use colored pencils when I'm coloring, with little punches of other mediums here and there to accompany it. But what if I did the opposite? What if I took a mystery medium, laid that down first, and then layered colored pencil on top of it? Do you know what would happen? Me neither, so let's try it. But first, today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators with more than 28,000 classes in design, art, business, and much, much more. Premium membership gives you unlimited access to classes, communities, and workshops that are just right for you and your learning goals. They have classes on painting, creative writing, photo editing, even sewing. So if you want to improve your knowledge on any topic, Skillshare has a class for you. So join the more than 7 million students already learning on Skillshare today with a special offer just for Pencil Stash viewers. Be one of the first 500 people to use the link below in the description to get a 2-month free trial. Now, beyond those 2 months, Skillshare is super affordable with an annual subscription being less than $10 per month. And with all the growth potential that these classes offer, this is a good investment in yourself and your personal development. Act now for this special offer and start learning with Skillshare today. All right, so our mystery medium is soft pastels. No surprise there, you probably knew about it from reading the title of this video, but today we're going to use soft pastels as our page's base layer. And mine are this little set of 64 by Mungyo, I have no clue how to say that, but I've got a wide variety of colors to play with here, and I don't know about you, but the bright colors in particular are calling my name. And our page for today will be this one from Fantomorphia. And I chose this book on purpose. Unlike other books, this one actually only has a coloring page on one side of the paper. And that's good because I actually want to remove the page entirely from the book. Pastels are very messy, so I don't want to contaminate the rest of the book, the rest of the coloring pages, with that pastel dust. Plus, that way, I'm not ruining the opposite side page, so win-win. So I'll just tear out that page, and I'll trim it with my paper cutter just to get rid of that rough edge. Now, why I chose this page in particular. Remember how I said I was drawn to those bright colors in the pastel box? Well, I think this page will be a really good showcase for some bright colors. A lot of the other pages in this book either kind of have a dark theme or have super small, skinny areas to get into, which just would not work with my pastels. So, cotton candy tree page it is. And because pastel is so messy, I also want to protect my desk. So I'm just going to put down some legal sheets of printer paper. I like the legal sheets just because they're a little bit bigger than your regular 8.5 by 11. And then I'm going to tape them together at the seams with just like blue painter's tape, just so that no dust kind of gets through and peeks through to get on top of my desk. And then I'll just work right on top of this. It's easy cleanup too, as you can just pull your tape up later and toss it all in the garbage. All right, now I've never done this before. This is very much an experiment. So I'm going to just try rubbing the pastel onto some areas just with direct contact, just to see how that works. And I'm starting with a light color, as this is the general area where I want my highlight to be. And I'm hoping that the light colors will be a little bit more forgiving as I kind of figure this out. Okay, it's going on a little bit opaque now, but I think it'll get kind of lighter as I start to blend this out. And now I'll just kind of go around that with a little bit of a lighter brown as I transition from my highlights to my shading. And just this in its rough form, it really looks ridiculous. But again, I'm going to be blending this out momentarily. So I'm just focusing on getting the color in the right area for now. And yeah, I'll just take a dry cotton swab and I'm going to see what this does when I try to blend it out. That looks pretty good actually. But I can already tell that the colors are probably going to blend out a touch lighter than they went down. So I'll just kind of have to keep that in mind as we go. Now we'll focus on some darker areas as we get behind some of these branches. And it'll be tough, but I'm going to try not to go too dark, as I want this page to end up nice and light and bright and airy. Plus, again, this is just that foundational layer, that base layer. So I'm going to be able to add darker colors, details later on with my colored pencils. And it is nearly impossible to get these pastel sticks into those little tiny tree branch areas on my page. So I'm just going to call an audible on those, and I'm just going to do them later with a colored pencil. I'm just a little too scared of getting brown into my sky to try it. Once my tree is in good shape, I'll move on to the greenery. And remember that it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just adding color in the areas that you want it. So I'm not going to worry about adding in any detail right now. Now with the greenery, I just want to focus my light colors sort of along that top edge where the sun would be hitting. And then I'm going to go in darker as I get down towards the ground in a gradient. Did I mention how messy these soft pastels are? Look at my fingers. Now, I'm purposely trying to only touch the pastels with my right hand so that I can keep my left hand clean. And that goes for touching the pastel areas of the paper too, as you could easily smudge and transfer color into areas that you don't want. So, again, I kind of need to hold the paper down with my left hand. So I'm really kind of just keeping my fingers in white, uncolored areas just to keep it in place. And then I'm blending and coloring with my right hand. And you're welcome to, blend and, smear with your fingers. Your fingers are an absolutely fantastic art tool. But I'm just using the cotton swab just because it's a little bit of a finer tip and it'll just keep my fingers from getting all messy. Now, I've mostly been concerned about the sky this whole time. This is such a large area, so I think it's going to be pretty unforgiving. I'm a little bit concerned that it's going to show like every brush stroke, for lack of a better word. And I'm sure that we're going to be able to blend most of that out, hopefully. I'm certainly going to try. And hopefully it'll just kind of read as like a wispy, kind of cloudy texture. Another thing I'm noticing is that in my reluctance to get right up against the edges, I'm getting a bit of a white halo where there isn't as much color to spread around. And getting into those little areas is just not ideal with these pastel sticks. So I figured out a bit of a hack that seemed to work well for me. I use the cotton swab itself to pull some color right off the pastel stick, and then I rub the cotton swab onto the paper. Now, this did put a bit of a dent in my plan to keep my left hand clean because I had to hold the pastel in the fingers of my left hand. So this is where I just kind of started to repeatedly wash my hands every time I switched colors, and it worked out okay. Now for the cotton candy tree canopy, I wanted this to be a combination of a handful of bright colors. So I started by laying down yellow, followed by a light pink, and then a darker pink, then a beautiful neon peach, which completely stole the show and just sort of brought everything together, then with fuchsia, and finally with a mid to kind of a dark tone purple. And when you're blending all of these out, I would just suggest sort of starting with the yellow area and just sort of working your way outwards, as I didn't want any of the dark colors to be blended towards the yellow and get them too muddy. So I did sort of flip my cotton swabs over, quite a bit just to kind of keep those colors nice and bright and true. Then I finished up my page. I used a few different blues on the water, and I finished off the rocks in gray. And the only areas that I left completely white were those two kind of steampunk air balloons flying through the sky, as I wanted to do those in colored pencil. Now for the most important step. Do not skip this one. I'm going to spray my page with a matte fixative, which will hold all my pastel dust against the page and keep it from slipping around. And yes, you can totally use colored pencil on top of this. We're just locking in our pastel layer to keep it in place. And if you're going to try this, follow the instructions on your specific fixative, but mine dries incredibly quickly and I was back at it, ready to use my colored pencils in no time at all. And your colored pencils, you just apply them like normal. They go right over top of your pastel layer. Plus, you can get into all the little tiny spots that you may not have been able to reach with your pastels, like my tree branches here. And my goal for my colored pencil layer is really to add in some nuance, a little bit of detail, some more thoughtful shading, etc. And I'm blending this all out with my dry cotton swab. And the most fun that I had with this was building in some shading between the layers of the cotton candy tree canopy with a darker purple. This step really brought that tree to life and allowed some additional depth to be added. Now, using the colored pencil did take just a teeny bit of getting used to on this surface. It wasn't vastly different than just using it on regular paper or another layer of colored pencil, but I did find that I got better results and got a better blend transition when using very light pressure, because again, you're not really blending necessarily into more colored pencil material. You are blending into just your fixative. So the easier that transition, the easier you can make that, the better. I also found it incredibly helpful to go in and around, kind of through the blue sky area with a colored pencil that was a very near match to the pastel that I'd used. Just kind of fills in those areas that I thought were just a bit unforgiving and finished off that area very nicely. Last thing I did was add in some of my Morse code kind of dots and dashes with my white Posca pen. It really added some whimsy up in the tree canopy as well as on the surface of the water. But I did kind of regret doing it on the tree trunk. It didn't look quite right there, but I think it was my application, totally my fault. But yeah, that's my pastel first, colored pencil later experiment in a nutshell. Overall, it was really fun, and I think I'll be employing this technique on some future pages. The biggest benefit that I see is that it sort of speeds up the time that it takes to get large areas of color down. We've all been there where it's kind of taking forever to get anywhere using your colored pencils. It kind of feels like you're trying to paint the whole house with like an itty bitty paintbrush. So this kind of allows large areas of color to go down as that foundational layer that you can then later customize with your colored pencils. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It helps me out immensely. Consider subscribing if you're new here, and check out my back catalog for even more real-time coloring tutorials. Don't forget, too, to hit that link in the description for your chance to get 2 months of Skillshare membership absolutely free. And I will see you all in the next video. Ciao! I was walking by the